7th, 2020. Your post does not comply with the rules of nudity or sexual conduct in the Community Code. October 18th, 2020. Your post does not comply with the hate speech regulations in the Community Code. October 10th, 2020. Your message does not comply with the rules of hate speech in the Community Code. May 8th, 2020. Your message does not comply with the requirements of the Community Code. Your account is restricted for 15 days. Your previous posts did not comply with our Community Code, so you cannot post or leave a message, etc. February 3rd, 2021. Your post does not comply with the rules of nudity or sexual conduct in the Community Code. November 29th, 2020. Your message does not comply with the rules of hate speech in the Community Code. November 7th, 2020. Your post does not comply with the rules of nudity or sexual conduct in the Community Code. October 18th, 2020. Your post does not comply with the hate speech regulations in the Community Code. October 10th, 2020. Your message does not comply with the rules of hate speech in the Community Code. May 8th, 2020. Your message does not comply with the requirements of the Community Code. April 17, 2019. Tetrahydrocannabinol, or the content of less than 0.3%, can be used as food crops, cash crops and industrial. The price of drugs for epilepsy is high, and the FDA first approved it for the treatment of epilepsy in June 2018. The CBD ingredients: 82 to 165, 36.32. Switzerland 5.8, 145 to 289, 29.99. Argentina 23.0, 21 to 43, 17.66. Poland November 7, 2020. Anti-epileptic effect. In 2900 BC, there's a record of cannabis as a medicine to treat epilepsy in Arab literature. 16. In the mid-19th century in Europe, Drive Sublin used cannabinoids to treat childhood epilepsy. May 6, 2020. The importance of this report is that it is a follow-up to the American Medical School in 1982 and 1999. People think it has a potential neuroprotective effect. So many studies use CBD-containing drugs to try to treat epilepsy. Patients with certain health problems, such as advanced cancer, epilepsy and nervous system diseases, use cannabinoids and marijuana to treat their diseases. Symptoms. Main adverse effects, see Section E below. 1. Are included in the agreed in 1972. Chapter 1. Medical, scientific and recreational uses of cannabis and cannabinoids, risks and benefits. Chapter 1. Medical, scientific and recreational. The governments of some countries have passed legislation allowing the existence of certain health problems, such as advanced cancer, epilepsy, and nervous system disease. Patients who use cannabinoids and cannabis to treat their disease symptoms. See Box 1 for definitions of main terms. Some medical. The hemp program has not been granted in accordance with the International Drug Control Treaties. Effective supervision, leading to the diversion of cannabis for non-medical purposes. the public health has an adverse effect. In some countries, regulation is not strong. Medical marijuana program and the lower risks associated with it. The level of cognition may contribute to the legalization of non-medical cannabis use. This is contrary to the International Drug Control Treaties. See paragraph 5 below in sections H to K. Box 1. Several main terms. 1. Cannabis and its derivatives refers to all products derived from the cannabis plant. Cannabis plant products include flowering tops, hemp, compressed hemp resin, hemp oil, concentrated hemp extract, hemp wax, and edible preparations such as infusions, biscuits, and chocolate. 2. Cannabinoids are substances that only exist in cannabis plants. It is estimated that there are about 104 unique, naturally occurring cannabinoids. But the most widely studied the two are tetrahydrocannabinol (THC) and cannabinol (CBD). THC can produce psychoactive effects, such as the pleasure, relaxation, and highly sensitive sensory experience sought by recreational users. Cannabidiol hardly produces psychoactive effects, can relieve the psychoactive effects of THC, and has antioxidant, anti-inflammatory and protective effects. The role of nerves. 3. Synthetic cannabinoids are substances produced in the laboratory and have similar effects to tetrahydrocannabinol or other cannabinoids, such as cannabinol. 4. Approved medicinal cannabinoids include dronabinol, cannabinol, nabiximols, and cannabinol. The potential uses of other cannabinoids are being studied. Source: National Academy of Sciences, National Academy of Engineering, and National Academy of Medicine. The health effects of cannabis and cannabinoids. Current evidence and research recommendations. Washington, D.C., National Technology Press, 2017. WHO, The Health and Social Impacts of Non-Medical Use of Cannabis, Geneva, 2016. And Leslie Everson, Cannabis Science, 2nd edition, Oxford, Oxford University Press, 2008. Because cannabis can cause dependence and cause public health adverse effects, see section E below. 1. Was included in the agreed in 1972 the Single Convention on Narcotic Drugs of 1961 as amended by the Table 4. These effects include car accident injuries, mental illness and other mental illness diseases, cognitive performance and educational performance disorders, interfere with the development of adolescents, childbirth, and adversely affect fetal development. If in youth use marijuana at the beginning of the period, it may damage the developing brain. The main cannabinoid with psychoactive properties, namely tetrahydrocannabidiol and its isomers and stereochemical variants, can produce a state of dependence and constitutes a public and social issue. Listed in Psychotropic Substances Convention of 1971, 3 Schedule 1. In the 2017 Annual Report 4, the board again analyzed related terms used in treatment of cannabinoids. So in this chapter, The term medicinal cannabinoids only refers to the extraction or synthesis from plants. Its safety and effectiveness have been evaluated in clinical controlled trials, and cannabinoids that have been licensed for medicinal use. 5. If the program of using cannabinoids in medical treatment is not well regulated, poor management may adversely affect public health. Such programs have weakened public awareness of the risks of cannabis use and reduced public legalization of non-medical, so-called recreational, cannabis concerns, which may prompt adults to use cannabis more for non-medical purposes and contribute to the legalization of non-medical cannabis, which is illegal back to the International Drug Control Treaties. This chapter details the international treaties that allow cannabinoids to be used in medicine. Conditions for therapeutic use. A brief overview of the use of cannabinoids in a variety of medical examples of the safety and effectiveness of the application, and introduce the allowable. United Nations Treaty Series, Volume 976, Number 14152. 2. When this report was finalized, the WHO Expert Committee on Drug Dependence will hold its 41st meeting, November 12 to 16, 2018, during which it will strictly review, among other things, cannabis and cannabis-related substances, namely cannabis and hemp resin, hemp extract and tincture of hemp, delta-9 tetrahydrocannabinol and tetrahydrocannabinol isomers. Advise the Director General of WHO on the following matters. According to Article 3(e) of the 1961 Convention as amended in 1971, Article 2, Paragraph 4 of the Convention on Psychotropic Substances is transmitted by WHO to the Commission on Narcotic Drugs. Any suggestions or evaluations from the committee United Nations Treaty Series, Volume 1019, Number 14956. 4 EINCB 2017/1. This chapter details the international treaties that allow cannabinoids to be used in medicine. Conditions for therapeutic use. A brief overview of the use of cannabinoids and a variety of medical examples of the safety and effectiveness of use, and introduce the advantages and disadvantages of various regulatory approaches that allow cannabinoids for medical use, including the risk of marijuana diversion for non-medical purposes. This chapter discuss how poor supervision of medical marijuana programs can contribute to marijuana legalized non-medical use, and and make recommendations at the end stating how should countries implement drugs that meet the requirements of the international drug control treaties. Use cannabinoid regimens. control your life and money without telling the truth. Animal medicinal and plant medicinal use. Can you tell their value? Greed. The insatiable person must be a miser. You remember this person. The villain characteristics. I have practiced several times in 5 years. Tilda. The advantages and disadvantages of various regulatory methods of cannabinoid for medical purposes, including the risk of marijuana diversion for non-medical purposes. This chapter discuss how poor supervision of medical marijuana programs can contribute to marijuana legalized non-medical use, and make recommendations at the end stating how should countries implement drugs that meet the requirements of the International Drug Control Treaties. Use cannabinoid regimens. Cannabis derivatives and International Drugs Control Convention 7. Article 4(c) of the 1961 Convention as amended provides that the use of narcotic drugs listed in the schedule to the convention is limited to medical and scientific research, including cannabis and its derivatives. According to this, under the convention, controlled clinical trials can be conducted to evaluate the use of cannabinoids, the pros and cons of medicine. The relevant treaties have the conditions for the use of derivatives for medical purposes are stipulated. E.g., Articles 23 and 28 of the 1961 Convention as amended ask governments to set up national cannabis agencies to control medical use cannabinoids to produce and manage the supply of such cannabinoids. This state agency shall issue licenses to producers, purchase and hold their as inventory, and monopolizes wholesale trade and inventory. The machine, the customs must provide the INCB with medicines to be used for medical purposes every year. The estimated quantity of the drug must also be provided for the patients who will receive medication. Estimated number of participants. To prevent the abuse and trafficking of cannabis, states parties must take measures to prevent unauthorized cultivation of cannabis plants and must harvest, seize and destroy illegally grown cannabis crops. All medical uses the cannabinoid plan must be formulated and developed under the full supervision of the relevant country. Implement.
取得 Premium 方案，享受更棒的聆听体验。Premium 代表
10. The relevant treaties require the establishment of an effective legislative framework to ensure medically monitor the use of cannabis and its derivatives to prevent hemp and its derivatives are used for non-medical purposes. Marijuana the government used for medical purposes must ensure that the attending physician medical practices and reasonable scientific evidence to prescribe cannabis prescription. Chapter 1 Medical, Scientific and Recreational Uses of Cannabis and Cannabinoids, Risks and Benefits. According to clinical controlled trials, cannabinoids can be used in medicine. The characteristics, safety and effectiveness of therapeutic use should be based on this aspect. The scientific evidence approves the medical use of cannabinoids. Approval: the medicinal cannabinoids should be prescribed by a doctor and by a pharmacist. Issue: the government should supervise the prescribers, drug distributors and patients to ensure that these cannabinoids are not diverted for non-medical purposes or be abused. The INCB has repeatedly stated that individuals grow cannabis for medical purposes. The method of purpose is contrary to the amended 1961 convention because, for among other things, this approach increases the risk of transfer. 5 PCS The cultivation of marijuana for medical purposes will prevent governments from supervise the production, manufacture, and production of cannabis in accordance with the requirements of the 1961 Convention. Export, import, distribution, trade and use and holding, medical treatment use estimates. Provide relevant statistical returns or implementation of Article 28. In addition to the risk of diversion, allowing individuals to grow marijuana for their own medical consumption may increase plus health risks because of the dose and amount of THC taken may be different from the doctor's prescription. Produces high concentrations of tetrahydrocannabis. Phenol concentrates and extracts are used for medical purposes. Adding hemp. The administration's concerns about the risks of diversion for non-medical purposes. B. Drug Registration and Prescription System. 13. In terms of obtaining standard doses of cannabinoids, smoking cannabis is not a medically acceptable method for 2 reasons. First, the composition of the cannabis plant is different, so it is difficult to specify a specific dosage. Secondly, inhaling carcinogens and toxins in cannabis cigarettes will people bring health risks. 7. Attempt to treat the medical use of cannabis products as herbal medicine for marketing and promotion, which does not comply with the 1961 Convention and the classification of cannabis and its derivatives in the 1971 Convention. IBID, paragraph 177. 6. European Monitoring Center for Narcotics and Drug Addiction. European Cannabis Legislation Overview. Luxembourg, European Union Publishing Office 2018, p. 7. 7. United States of America, National Academy of Sciences, National Academy of Engineering and National School of Medicine, The Health Effects of Cannabis and Cannabinoids. Current Evidence and Research Recommendations, Washington, D.C., National Academic Press, 2017. Pharmaceutical-grade cannabinoids should be approved by the National Drug Regulatory System for medical purposes. It should be demonstrated that cannabinoids treat certain medical conditions, the pharmacological specificity of the disease to avoid their being used for therapeutic efficacy, medical illnesses with limited evidence. The cannabinoids so approved can be the most provide high quality and standard dose known drugs for medical use, therapeutic use. 8. If there is evidence that the drug produced has reached quality and safety requirements, medical regulatory agencies can approve the drug. It is used for medical purposes. These agencies will also ask for random evidence from clinical controlled trials shows that the drug is safe and effective when used to treat patients with specific medical conditions. The drug is more effective than a placebo, or is active treatment kind of effective. 9. When evaluating the possibility of using controlled substances for medical purposes, countries should ensure that the treatment advantages they provide cannot be theirs or almost no provision of uncontrolled drugs of addictive nature. 10. Once the drug is approved for medical use, the medical school and clinicians usually formulate clinical practice guidelines for their use. The guidelines are designed to help prescribers understand how to best incorporate new drugs used into clinical practice. For example, they can be used to treat diseases, whether they will be used as first-line or post-treatment, or whether it is used as an adjunct or monotherapy. 19. After the drug is approved for medical use, the health supervisor of the department can monitor the adverse reactions of patients using the drug. Need to conduct post-marketing monitoring of the drug and found that rare, but serious, not detected in licensed clinical trials. Jennifer H. Martin, Yvonne Bonamo, and Adrian D.B. Reynolds, Sympathy and Evidence for Prescription Cannabinoids. The King of Australia, Views from the School of Family Physicians, Volume 208 of the Australian Journal of Medicine, Issue 3, February 2018. 9. Odelia Osakwe, Drug Control. The role of the government in the drug development industry. The role in the social aspects of drug R&D, development and commercialization, edited by Odelia Osakwe and Syed A. Lisway, London. Elsevier Press 2016. Also Lembetrago and Budiono Santoso, Drug Supervision, Management, History, Current Status, and Future, in Pros and Cons of Drugs. Clinical Pharmacology, Learning International Textbooks, 2nd edition, revised, Chris J. Van Boxtel, Budino, edited by Santoso and I. Ralph Edwards, Uppsala, Sweden. La Monitoring Center, 2008. Martin, Bonomo and Reynolds, The Same Love and Evidence. After the drug is approved for medical use, the health supervisor the department can monitor the adverse reactions of patients using the drug. Need to conduct post-marketing monitoring of the drug and found that rare but serious adverse reactions not detected in licensed clinical trials. Clinical trials are usually short-term and are carried out among carefully selected patients. Only with this medicine when treating a large number of unselected patients. The rare adverse side effects. Drug sales companies may sell to medical practitioners relevant drugs, use them for approved medical purposes. The doctor can use the approved drug for non-indications, that is, to treat the drug objects or approved to treat medical diseases other than diseases. But the regulatory system companies are not allowed to promote the use of drugs beyond their approved adaptation symptoms, such as exaggerating drug indications and encouraging doctors' prescriptions for symptoms, exaggerating the efficacy of drugs, or underreporting any good response. Drug regulatory systems in many countries have developed special TAGA plan that allows patients with serious diseases, such as cancer, obtaining unapproved drugs. This requires evidence to prove conventional treatment is not effective for the patient, and the patient must be approved. Drugs indicate informed consent. Obtained in this way, the drug obtained may have been approved for medical use in other countries, but it is not available in the country where the patient is located, or related drugs are available. Energy is still in clinical trials. 11. Usually required by a practicing physician prescription. The import and export of drugs approved by the Drug Regulatory Agency. Use